Welcome everyone to the captive audience. I'm Kevin Hoare. Sorry, starting a bit late here today. Just cruising on the highway and trying to get myself back in front of the camera here for you. This is a live show, and it is the 3rd of February, the day after Groundhog Day, which apparently indicates, at least on the East Coast, that there's 6 more weeks of winter. Of course, they got a lot of snow and ice over there. I'm not sure that Puxatawny Phil has much sway when it comes to uh, the other side of the country here, the left coast, because we've had amazingly and unseasonably um, fair weather. And, I think it's a good thing. Although one of the problems is we haven't had a lot of precipitation. And that is going to lead us to maybe struggling with the snowpack that we need to get through the summer months and not have so much of a problem on water supply and dealing with the fire season. However, last season was relatively mild fire season, so let's see what happens. I don't know. Just wanted to bring that out to you because I'm glad to be here in front of you, and there's a lot of news to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and um, I'm going to kind of put this in front of you that right now, um, I think the big three topics here in Oregon, one is what's happening with the state legislative session, and the other is definitely the riots that are going on. But there's a third one that kind of calls the bluff on the rest of it, and I want to mention that, which is the state of the economy here in Oregon. This is a state which is struggling at a time when, frankly, the rest of the country is starting to hit its stride. And that should actually be brought to people's attention here in the coming weeks and months. Um, and so, uh, I think we're standing on the precipice of a realization where Democrats in the state who are running it want to focus on uh, the immigrations and customs enforcement as they encourage riots, which they call protests and pretend they're all peaceful. They would like to stay focused on that issue. And of course, what are they trying to do? They're trying to preserve um, sanctuary state status, which is really only sanctuary for criminals in the end, because people who are not criminals really don't need a sanctuary. And when you have a sanctuary state which refuses to cooperate with removing violent and severe hardened criminals from our midst, not waiting for them to commit crimes, but when they already have criminal records and they're here either illegally or on a immigration status that uh, can be revoked and they can be deported. The choice here in Oregon by the Democrats running the state is to not only fail to cooperate, but actually try to impede or obstruct that effort. And in this state, the decision to do that is leading to uh, them flooding the airwaves and focusing on what's going to happen with regard to immigration enforcement. However, there's going to be immigration enforcement in the future. There has been in the past, and there is now. Um, what people aren't tolerant of anymore is they're not tolerant of riots. And I think we're going to see that play out. But let me wind the clock back here to what is going on in the state, and we'll end with talking about riots and um, immigration enforcement. So, first things first, the state legislative session has just kicked off. It's the annual session. It was designed constitutionally, unfortunately, uh, maybe in a flawed way. It was supposed to be the least political one. It was supposed to do something that often caused the legislature to be called into session anyway on an unscheduled basis, and that was to make corrections to the budget when there would be better forecasts or changes on revenue, when there might be a need to allocate and expend funds for things that were going to be in need of uh, funding that they didn't anticipate when they went into the long session and made the 2 year budget. Hi, Lori. Thank you for showing up. And so that's what it was supposed to be, not big sweeping policy changes, not things that should receive months of deliberation, committee work, hearings, um, reconciliation between two different uh, houses of the legislature, uh, public scrutiny, etc. It's supposed to be for the smaller things, the tweaks. It's almost always ended up being the opposite. It's almost always been political grandstanding, sweeping policy changes they want to push through. In this case, the Democrats who have run the state since this has come since its inception um, a while back, at least a decade for the annual session. And the result has been things like a massive change to the minimum wage laws. Um, right now, they're going to try to address a budget failure that they failed twice at and then had it shoved back in their face by the voters, and that is the attempt to raise uh, gas taxes and fees and income taxes to cover the Oregon Department of Transportation budget. And even though there's half a dozen ways to do it without increasing taxes, they wanted to do it anyway, could barely agree to it themselves. And then once they did pass it and sign it into law, um, nearly 250,000 Oregonians, voters, signed a petition to take what they did to increase the gas tax and other fees and refer it to the ballot where they get to second guess the whole thing. So back to where we are now looking at very likely a rejection of those taxes and fees. And Tina Kotek has said that she is going to advocate for the complete repeal of the entire ODOT budget bill and revenue, which I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to happen. What I do know is that the Democrats have decided to focus on yet another budget issue, which they say is catastrophic due to the loss of revenue that it causes, as they see it. Loss of revenue to the government, not to the citizens. And that is the one big beautiful bill passed at the federal level, which is connected in the tax code to the state level and therefore determines what your state taxable income is as well, has a package of new uh, tax relief measures, such as no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, up to certain thresholds. And what they did, what the Democrats said, is that they wanted to somehow disconnect the state tax code from the federal tax code, at least selectively, for some of the tax measures. One of the tax measures or tax relief elements that they plan to reverse in particular is the deduction of auto loan interest. So if you buy a car, when you buy a house, you can deduct the mortgage interest. And that's been in place for a long time. And it's been factored into, what the cost out of pocket is to buy a house. Well, that was added this past year for auto loans at the federal level. It would have applied to the state level, but they said, no, we don't want to do that now because they want to keep the money at the state level. The second thing is there's a series of tax relief measures to encourage business to invest and be able to deduct or depreciate the cost of those investments more rapidly. And the answer that the Democrats have come up with is to really hurt those businesses. Hi, Pam. Thanks for being with us. And so this is a state that I'm going to talk about shortly here has some economic issues, and people believe that the state leadership is responsible. And more people that don't know this need to be made aware of this. But now this state also wants to go after spending like drunken sailors, hand over fist for years, double digit increases in budgets at the state level. Now they're facing what they say is a budget hole, a $291 million general fund budget hole. And they want to recapture $342 million to make up for it and take it out of the pockets of hardworking Oregonians and businesses that they simply expect to continue staying here and and simply continue expanding, which many of them are showing signs of not doing. So if you don't want businesses to invest in machinery and equipment in Oregon, become the state that penalizes doing that relative to other states, which are going to continue to reward that activity because of the federal bill that's doing the same. People will simply go somewhere else with their investment money. And there are a number of things that are going to be scaled back uh, that relate to that auto loan thing, and that is going to hurt people who thought they could buy a car, and of course it's retroactive to last year, and deduct the interest. In fact, I don't think that it's going to be too popular with some of the auto dealers in the state who, you know, would like to see a vibrant consumer economy. But Oregon's not interested in that. The Democrats want to make sure that we have a vibrant government economy. And that's just not penciling out, because it's like when you take a power strip and you take one end of the power strip and plug it into itself. That's how Democrats think the economy works. So the government can simply become the most important thing, and therefore, um, when you raise taxes, it simply allows you to pay for more government, and the economy will just continue to hum along and not care at all. That is not what's happening. Anyway, this disconnect is going to hurt the economy in Oregon. It's going to hurt business investment, and it's going to hurt working class people. So stay tuned on this one, because this could be one of the big battles ahead. Yes, we should fire Tina Kotek, but we also have to make sure we explain the issues so people who are on the fence understand that what they've been getting from Tina Kotek and the people leading this state is detrimental to their interests. So many people have not been told that, and they live in a news silo where they don't even hear this stuff. Anyway, I wanted to mention that apparently the revenue chairs have agreed. Oregon's revenue chairs between the state house and state senate have agreed to a proposed revenue deal, though they don't know what they're going to do about ODOT. So that's still up in the air. But I'll get to the ODOT thing here in a moment. There is more to say about that. But they say that this is what they're going to do is take back money in the federal deductions, and I think they're going to try to see what they can't slip through in terms of other state funding measures. So stay tuned, because in a state where they just saw 250,000 people sign a petition in a rebellion against what Democrats have been doing in the state to to it being an affordable state to live in, they just want to keep doing more of the same. And really, the main thing about a short session is they'll sneak it through. So we're going to try to make sure they can't do that very easily. Here's a few more items to bring to your attention, and I'll post some of these stories. You can go read, what. And by the way, I think some of these stories you have to read between the lines, because what you can see between the lines is that when they say revenue, they mean taxes. because they're not a business that can just earn revenue. They just view taxes as revenue, and taxes are a forced taking. There's no way around it. That's what it is. So uh, they think that you can just squeeze blood out of a turnip forever. And I think they're going to come up against that. They want to say they want to expand the existing tax credit to low income Oregonians and create a new credit for business that adds new jobs to the state. They're terrible at that. So, I guess once they have more specifics, we can find out what they're talking about. But while they're taking away tax breaks that have come through from the federal level, maybe we should take that with a grain of salt. Other legislation. There are 14 bills, ideas that are for 2026 in the what Taxpayers Association calls the super fast legislative session. It's 35 days. And one of the things they're considering is they want to take the gas tax referendum and shift it from November to May, like move it up. And they hope to do that because they know it's wildly unpopular, and they want to see if they can't use their union get out the vote machine at a time when they're less likely to see high turnout and maybe still win. Or they get their verdict back sooner and then they take the next step. They don't want to have Tina Kotek sitting on a ballot right next to the tax increase that people are going to vote no against. They also want to change the ballot title. They want to see if they can't. See, it says here lawmakers are tasked with ensuring that attempts by some of their liberal colleagues to create a biased committee for drafting the gas tax ballot measure title and summary are thwarted. That's an effort that they're undergoing. It's crucial that voters have a clear understanding of how this measure affects their finances. So they basically want to tell some big whoppers, some lies, distorting what the effect of the gas tax is by making it sound like it's nothing. So you still vote for it. The Democrats are also coming after the kicker, and the kicker could be a significant amount this year. You can actually check out what that amount is likely to be. Let me see. I think, let's see. There's usually a calculator for the kicker that you can go and check out. What's my kicker? Here we go. So let me copy this link and share it with you. Go check out what your kicker amount is. A lot of folks, it's a fair amount of money. It's when they estimate how much revenue they're going to have, and then they pass a budget for spending, and then it turns out more revenue comes in than they expected, and it refunds it to the people paying that revenue, which is the income taxpayers, the voters. And they want to take that. So there is a concerted effort to go and take that from you. They have a plan to divide any surplus above 300 million, which right now it's at 1.4 billion, rather than returning the surplus funds to taxpayers under this 1970s tax rebate law. This proposal would require voter approval to amend the state constitution, but it seeks to allocate excess funds between taxpayers and the state. So in other words, they're going to halfway give you your money back that they collected too much of. They say they want to channel it to education and wildfire prevention and response. They're terrible at both of those. And so I think the other problem is that they're going to have a hard time convincing people that they'll do more of what they'll do better with more money. They've had more money in the past. They still do a terrible thing, a terrible one. So the kicker, I don't know. I think it's I think you get it when you file your 2025 taxes in 2026. Correct. They've got a bunch of carbon tax initiatives, which is just another way to milk people for money. They aren't going to alter the Earth's environment. They are going to make the power grid weaker by increasing our reliance on solar and and wind, but uh, they want to make it so that you can't use oil, gas, coal, and then they're going to go out and punish the sector of the economy that they'll fine them, heavy energy users that produce things like cement. Um, they think that it could cost about $5 billion to these industries and produce a revenue windfall. Um, the requirements for installing solar energy, they plan to tweak that, and they want to raise hotel taxes to support conservation efforts. Nobody knows what that means except for the fact that they think it'll be paid by people who aren't from Oregon more often than people who are. It'll stay that way if Oregonians can't afford a vacation in their own state. So there you go. They want to. There's a Senate Bill 1507 that aims to lower, they say, certain taxes while introducing a statewide retail sales tax. I gotta believe that's one of the dumbest things they could try to do right now. If they eliminated the income tax, people might be interested in that, but they have no plans to do that. We have one of the highest income tax rates in the country, and they plan to keep it that way. They want to have a business tax increase that seeks to counter some of, well, and that's the thing I was telling you about, the $300 million they want to suck out of businesses. It's been endorsed by unions who don't care about businesses. And they say that the tax bill at the federal level primarily benefits the wealthy. But I don't know any wealthy people who are sitting around thinking how important it is to their car purchase that they deduct their auto loan interest. So there's a great example of how that's total BS. They want to create a bureaucracy for gun permits. It proposes to change ballot measure 114, which I think is still stuck in limbo. I don't know what it is. But they will extend the permit processing time from 30 to 60 days and raise the fees by 130%, postponing the mandate for permits until 2028. So that's the only good part, is postponing the mandate. But they're going to go ahead and create a bunch of bureaucracy and charge massive fees. They want to ban ICE agents from hospitals, and of course, there's actually, I saw a story about this. People were claiming that ICE agents were walking around the halls of hospitals looking for people. When they checked into this, they found out that not only was that not true, but the hospitals where this is being claimed to happen were admonishing their employees to stop telling the media that it was happening. So there. Um, uh, they plan to reinforce still further Oregon sanctuary laws to protect criminals and penalize federal law enforcement. I'll talk about that more in a second. Democrat representatives suggest that Oregon should withhold federal funding if the federal government cuts payments to the state for not complying with the federal laws and regulations and allowing federal law enforcement to conduct its business and to produce transparency for federal funds spent by the state. It's citing its sanctuary status as the reason, and so they want to see if they can't withhold money from the federal government. They say it could impact roughly $22 billion in annual funding for Oregon, which, maybe just stop creating problems for law enforcement and we'll call it good and tell the truth. But no, that's pretty hard to do. They'd rather pass legislation and keep doing what they're doing. They want to restrict license plate data use. These things that scan license plates to catch bad guys, which you have no expectation of privacy with a state-issued license plate in public. But they want to restrict and penalize it because they say that it's being misused by federal ICE agents for immigration arrests and to identify out-of-state women seeking abortions. I've heard no evidence that the out-of-state women seeking abortions thing is happening at all. So that's quite an invention. But I totally think that they should be catching uh, illegal alien criminals and deporting them using this publicly available information and that people display in public. So, but they want to pass some restrictions on that because they love having criminals come to Oregon and be able to hide. Um, there's some changes they want to make to the Oregon health plan. They say they want to do something about the housing crisis in response to skyrocketing housing prices that they caused. Lawmakers are pursuing legislation to simplify home construction by easing land use regulations and providing estate tax exemptions. Well, nobody believes them on the estate tax exemption, but it would be great if they eased land use regulations. Uh, and they're also advocating, Governor Kotek wants to have a one-time exemption from the urban growth boundary, which I don't know if we're ever going to see that, but if they do, that will be a major step. I think that'd have a lot of support, but I don't know why a one-time exemption. It's why aren't we going to have? You really can't just do something one time. It takes a long time to build housing developments over large areas, and they say they need. Well, she's been terrible at building houses. She's built like 11,000 out of the 36,000 a year she promised. So she's way behind, and she should probably lose the governor's election on that issue alone. And they want to tackle the mental health worker shortage. So this is a lot of stuff they say they're going to do in the span of a 35-day session that's already 2 days old. So watch out for what they're doing, because they're going to play games and try to sneak stuff through without public scrutiny. And how are they doing that? Well, in part, they have violated the legislature's own notice rules. As of yesterday, they were not allowing testimony to be submitted for the kicker or this gun bill that we read about. They were blocking it and preventing it. It's no accident. They did not display any public hearings, and they got caught. And so what happened? Well, apparently, early testimony it was blocked for the kicker, but now you can do this testimony. So please go there and do this. Let me post the article, because we should all do this. You'll find after you do the kicker calculation that that's a lot of money, relatively speaking, to anyone's budget. And that you can go, I'm going to copy this link and post it. You can go here and you can, let's see, did that go through? I don't know. Please go here. Copy link. Or no, sorry. Copy link. So go here and submit some testimony. I will. There's a poll. And this is where this. Oh, wait a second. There's one other bill thing I wanted to tell you about. Oregon lawmakers, Floyd Przansky in particular in Eugene, has introduced a bill to ban masked law enforcement and require that they wear visible ID. They do not plan to require that of Antifa, and so this is an attempt to help dox federal agents and force them to be easily identified, exposed, their families put upon and doxed and harassed, because that's what's been happening whenever they can do it. And now they think they can force us through state law, but it is going to be blocked in federal court. And supremacy clause will, once they get past some of the lower level idiot judges that make all kinds of nutty decisions, they'll get to the point where this law, which will be there will be an injunction against if it goes signed into law, will be negated, because there's actually federal court precedent dating back a long time, like over 150 years, 100 and I think it's 140 years, and they will uh, not be able to tell federal agents what to do using state law. It's just not going to happen. So the economy. Here's what's happening. So apparently, Oregon's job losses have pushed the unemployment rate to 5.2%, and that's the highest outside of a recession or recovery in a decade, and it's one of the higher ones in the United States right now. And what do people think of this? Well, Oregonians are pessimistic about the economy here, and they're souring on state leaders. And that's according to a Democrat pollster. 73% of Oregonians rate current economic conditions as poor. Nearly half are struggling to pay for groceries and essentials, and only 26% believe Oregon is heading in the right direction. 26%. And this was commissioned by Oregon Business and Industry. DHM Research is a Democrat polling firm, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that they're being paid by somebody who wants honest answers. And so, what are these answers? 64% disapprove of Governor Kotek's and the legislature's performance. Now, 55% disapprove of Donald Trump's performance, but he's actually doing something to improve the economy in the whole country. Policies killing the state. Tina Kotek and the state legislature, they're at 64%. Now, out of the ones who said that the state was heading in the right direction, only 5% of Republicans said that. 46% of those people that said that this state was heading in the right direction are Democrats. Or sorry, 46% of Democrats said that. So not even a majority actually think it's going in the right direction who are Democrats. And Republicans take a very dim view of it. So this is an important thing to share with people and make them aware of, because the economy is struggling in this state. Does that sound like it's a priority for the people taking tax breaks away from individuals, taking kicker money away from individuals, taking incentives to invest away from businesses? Does that sound like the priority of the state legislature? I don't think so. Now, I also want to add that there's concern about Oregon's agriculture. According to Capital Press, nearly 70% of Oregon farms are operating at net cash loss right now, and the state is losing about one farm per day. This is not politics. This is just data. And so there's a real problem. And you know what happens when small farms, who are the ones that have the hardest time to survive, go out of business? They often get bought up by larger industrial farming operations, which the Democrats say they hate. And of course, the Democrats love this bill that's going to ban animal husbandry, which is farming, so that you can't buy meat or dairy products. They love that idea. So if they can't put them out of business by making the conditions horrible for those businesses, they're going to make sure that they put them out of business by simply obliterating them altogether, and it's and banning the practices of farming and ranching. So anyway, let's talk briefly here about the riots. This is something that has been going on here. Last Friday there was a riot in Eugene. There were peaceful protests in Springfield. The peaceful protesters proceeded over to the federal building in Eugene, gathered outside, and then quickly engaged in property destruction, busting out windows, terrorizing civilian staff in the federal building, and once after they had breached the building and did all this, the Eugene police tried to de-escalate, but were unable to stop the rioters from doing this. According to Andy No, Antifa from Portland was involved in this, and he identified people that were engaged in inciting this activity. It the as soon as the feds came down from Portland to respond to this attack on the federal building in Eugene, and started having to use tear gas and other things to force the crowd back, the Eugene police withdrew from the scene, and politicians there went to the microphones and defended, even though they said don't take the bait and don't do property destruction. They urged people to continue protesting and pretended like it was largely peaceful, even though it's pretty easy to see the scene was no such thing. Same in Portland. And Keith Wilson, the mayor, has turned out to be a complete dud. He's a doofus. And what he did is he went and started issuing these crazy demands that people working for ICE should resign, which he has no authority over, and that they should refuse to do their jobs. And that's because the mayor and local law enforcement are simply allowing violent protesters to engage in riotous activity and threaten the ICE facilities and the people in it. And it's just been going on for a very long time. And so when you don't actually provide local security like they do in other states where you don't see this happening, you end up with this situation where you have kind of a foaming at the mouth mayor who, in effect, is defending both the sanctuary state status and the riotous protesters. And so, Lars Larson has pointed this out. They're putting federal buildings at risk in Portland and Eugene, and state officials like Tina Kotek, Congresswoman Val Hoyle in the 4th District, and others, the mayor in Portland, are taking the side essentially of the rioters. They refuse to do anything about them doing this activity, and they let them do it, and then they blame the feds for defending the buildings and responding. So Wilson characterized the activity as a peaceful daytime protest and said those present violated no laws and made no threat and posed no danger to federal forces. That's what he said. And yet there's all this video of that not happening. And there's a lot of people that are getting fed up with the lawlessness and the violence and the lack of accountability for this. And, this is not Washington, D.C. This is not some distant jurisdiction. This is happening here on the ground where people appear to be enjoying these attacks and using this as a form of recreation. And of course, we have criminals and repeat offenders being let out all the time to do whatever it is they want to do to add to this problem. And these people are also trying to interfere whenever they can with ICE agents and federal law enforcement. So I don't know. There's a commentary here that makes a statement that says lawlessness thrives in apathy, accountability grows in participation. We should start engaging in that here in the state of Oregon, and things would dramatically improve. But again, the leaders in Eugene, Tina Kotek and so on, went down and pleaded with rioters to stop rioting while doing nothing about it. And then they attacked President Trump and blamed him for everything that was happening. It was kind of fascinating because I mentioned Tina Kotek. Also, they're saying don't do stuff that causes President Trump to go and deploy more federal agents to the state. And so don't give them a reason to, she says, deploy them or an excuse to gaslight us into submission. I don't even know what that means. You can't gaslight somebody who's actually doing the things that are causing this activity. And she does acknowledge that there are agitators, but she also says that they're also just people that President Trump disagrees with, which I don't think when you're an agitator and a rioter, this is any more about a philosophical disagreement. It's just not. It says that the Eugene police have made no arrests, though the FBI said they were seeking information to arrest people for their activity in attacking the building. And I believe I've heard somewhere that they have made some arrests. So let me see if I can. I don't know. Oh, I see somebody posted another article there. I'll take a look at that, Maria. I'm not familiar with that article. I don't know how to click on it here right now, so I'll have to do it later. Anyway, but there are people speaking out, and I want you to know about one of them. Monique Despain is a candidate for the 4th District for Congress, which happens to encompass Eugene, and as well as Corvallis, all of the coast from Lincoln County down to the California border, and Roseburg, out to Roseburg in Douglas County. And she just posted some results in her fundraising. So as we go into this next year and everybody's saying, well, Democrats are going to win everything. Everybody's angry at Trump. Everybody's going to backlash against that. Actually, I think the Democrats are sowing the seeds of their own political misfortune with these crazy claims, these wild claims, these encouragement of rioters, the interference with immigration enforcement, and frankly, their neglect of the economy and their penchant for raising taxes and spending money while regular Oregonians struggle. But Monique Despain, running against Val Hoyle, announced her fundraising results, and she raised nearly $400,000, or 3 times the amount of money that incumbent Val Hoyle raised, $134,000. That's a feat that's rarely accomplished, that a challenger outraises an incumbent in any race in the country. And it's not the easiest thing to do to raise money during the fourth quarter, Christmas and Thanksgiving and all that stuff. But that's what happened. And it's showing that, and also her donations were 89% coming from within Oregon. 1,100 grassroots donors stepped up. And this sends a message. People here are upset with what's happening and want better representation in D.C. than they're getting from Val Hoyle. Val Hoyle is a scandal-plagued history of corruption who is siding with the squad in Congress. She votes that way. She signs letters with them, taking the same positions. She's really kind of a radical leftist. She calls it a progressive, but she's to the left of most of the Democrat Party, and certainly out of sync with the district, and the people in the district are speaking back. Monique Despain says, she's a retired Air Force colonel, 30 years in service. She says that what people want are safe neighborhoods, a secure border to continue, a thriving, affordable economy, and a government that's finally transparent and accountable and stops funding failure, which they've been spending money left and right on things that don't work, make things worse. So take a look at her and what she's done. I can post the article about that here, and you can check her out. But she is fighting the good fight and speaking out, and apparently encouraging riots and urging people to resist federal law enforcement and calling the president a fascist and a tyrant is not good for her fundraising. Maybe she'll just continue doing it. It seems like she thinks it's a great idea. Um, Meanwhile, watch that district, hot opportunity. We talked about the governor's race. There was a debate over the weekend. Let me see if I can pull it up for you here. And there was an article written about it, and it included everybody. It included several major candidates: Chris Dudley, Ed Deal, State Representative Ed Deal. Chris Dudley was the 2010 nominee, former Portland Trailblazer, and Danielle Bethel, Marion County Commissioner, and then another gentleman, Matt Rowe, who's a libertarian. And it didn't include, or she didn't attend, and apparently wasn't available to attend, was Christine Drazen, who's the other major candidate. And of course, by the way, the libertarian candidate uh, was taking the side of the Democrats in this debate, and uh, and was basically staking out his plans to stand up to President Trump's policies. So he attacked the Republicans, and uh, he claimed that 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 um, that Oregonians are immutably opposed to what President Trump's doing. So I don't know. He got to express his opinion, but so did the other candidates, and they focused on the gas tax. They focused on the backlash to all the spending here in Oregon and the failure to solve the problems that people had at the top of their list the last two elections. And of course, they all mentioned that ICE wouldn't have to come here because they get the bad guys out and they cooperate, and the temperature go down immediately. Solved. Something Ed Deal said. So anyway, just wanted to give you a little look-see as to what's happening on the political front. I appreciate you staying on here tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope it was informative. And please take a look at your tax kicker, but let people know who's causing the problems in Oregon and who's responsible so they can make a change at the ballot box this fall. And also how poor the representation is in Washington, D.C. by the Democrats that have gotten elected repeatedly in the past and have given us these problems in the first place. Anyway, I hope all of you have a fine evening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode